my number one thing is work ethic. I've signed a lot of writers that I don't think were necessarily ready for a publishing deal because I knew they were going to work hard to achieve greatness. And that's still like hard work beats talent every time. Because if you're,
I agree with that. Big time.
I'm the biggest believer in that. I will sign a hard worker over the best singer in the world every day.
Lee Krabel.
Hi.
Thank you for being on What's Mine Is Yours.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I'm excited to have you. I think you are probably the first person in, like, as in your position for publishing that we've had on the show. So in regards to the music industry, can you just explain a little bit what your title is and what you do?
Yeah, I'm the Senior Vice President of Smack Songs. Most of my role is to sign and develop songwriter talent, and that includes artists and whatnot. And we also try to kind of manage their careers, manage their calendars, make sure their songs are heard by artists and A&R people, producers, whatever it happens to be. But basically to, develop songwriters into being hit songwriters and to take hit songwriters to the next level. So.
And I usually don't like to go back into people's past, but you have a pretty interesting kind of entry into what you do. You grew up in a small town in Illinois.
Yep.
Right? And as on the farm,
yeah.
What was it? Did you know you wanted to do country music? Was there something about it, or was that something that came later?
Came later. I had no idea that working in the music business was even feasible where I grew up. So I joined the Army out of high school, and while I was in the Army, I had some friends from the area where I grew up that were moving to Nashville to pursue a career in the music business, and I didn't know about that. And so before I was deployed, I'd visited Nashville, and I met people that went to Belmont University, and I was like, what is Belmont University? And the more research I did, I found Brad Paisley and Josh Turner and Leanne Womack, Trisha Yearwood all went to this place. And I was like, I didn't know you could get a degree in the music business and then try to work in it. So after I got out of active duty, I made the decision to go to Belmont University.
Well, by the way, yes, I was going to get into your service. Thank you, by the way, for your service. You also did a tour in Iraq as well?
I did, yes. I was in Iraq for a year.
Okay, so what about, because I think I read a short bio about you that mentioned this, and it said that country music was kind of inspirational to you during that time. What was it about country music that made a big impact on you, kind of even during those years while you were in the military?
Yeah, I always grew up around country music, and I always liked it, but when I was deployed and was gone, it was home. It reminded me of home, and I became even more obsessed with country music. And it was especially at the time of Dierks Bentley and Eric Church, and that generation of Keith Urban, and that generation of artists was taking off, which is kind of what got my obsession started into country music. And I'd always listened to Tim McGraw and Garth Brooks and Faith Hill and all that stuff, but yeah, it was kind of that era that.
Can you remember a specific song that really made you feel most at home?
The Dierks Bentley song "My Last Name" was pretty instrumental in me becoming obsessed with him, which kind of led to a bunch of other artists.
When you got to Belmont, were you, because that came shortly after you were done with the military, right?
Yeah, I got home in June and I started in Belmont in August.
Wow. Okay. So. Did you know that you were going for publishing, or were you just looking for a foot in the door in the music industry at no matter what door it was?
I kind of had an idea I wanted to be in publishing. I actually bought a book while I was in Iraq of 100 careers in the music business.
Okay.
And I read that and I was like, publishing sounds fun. Working with songwriters sounds like a good job. But when I started at Belmont, I had a lot of people tell me that I needed to pursue other avenues. So I also interned at a record label, a management company, and a publishing company, and realized publishing really was the path. But at the time I graduated, I probably would have accepted just about anything in the music business, so just to get my foot in the door.
That's true, because I think a lot of people, the more I sit down with more people in this industry, they usually start one area, or they wear many hats.
Yeah.
Which is, so how many hats would you say you've worn so far?
I've only been as a professional, I've only been a publisher.
Okay.
But I did intern at a management company, and I had the band Little Big Town was at the management company, and they would pay me to do odd jobs like house sit and take care of their animals and stuff like that. So that was probably my first paid gig, was house sitting for Kimberly Schlappman in Little Big Town.
That's fun.
Stuff like that. But the first paying job was publishing at Seagale Music in 2009. Which is
pretty cool that what you've kind of set your sights on is where you've ended up.
Yeah.
Being at.
Yeah.
So what exactly about publishing do you just love, that you've fallen in love with?
I just love songs, which means I started liking songwriters. And even before I wanted to work in the music business, I would always, in the liner notes of the CD, I would always want to know who the songwriters were. And I remember seeing Dean Dillon's name a lot, or even in the rock space, you'd see like Desmond Child or whatever it happens to be. And I just was like, man, I didn't know that like these people just like write songs for a living. And so I was just always enamored with the songwriter, and which kind of led to where I am. So
I could agree with that. I didn't come to town being a songwriter before, like when I was an artist, and I feel like I could name like all the songwriters and what they did. Even my team has said that was like something they were like pretty impressed by, that I like knew everything, because I just know as a songwriter, and I'm sure you would agree, that this city is built, I think, on the songwriter's back.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, without the songwriter,
there's nothing.
You don't have anything.
There's no song.
No. And this is exactly actually why I started the show. And I think I told you before we started filming, is that I started this show based upon interviewing songwriters specifically.
Yeah.
And because I had always felt like artists sing their words, people make a living off of other people's stories, but yet they're not heard from a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's nice when people have created a space here in Nashville specifically too, where it's like, it's really all about the songwriter and making sure that they're taken care of. And I wish people did more of that. I think that people try, but it's not necessarily.
It's a growing knowledge. I think that the songwriter round, the songwriter show is something that's been growing, that I've seen. Just my writers get paid a lot to go do private gigs all over the country. And the songwriter thing is growing, like the knowledge of what they do and how special it is. Like 3 people go into a room and just create something out of thin air.
Big time.
And, and then it's on the radio 6 months later. Like that stuff is pretty incredible. So it is something that I think is growing. But Nashville's the mecca of songwriting in the whole world, in my opinion. So.
Okay, so going off what I was going to be talking about, but because you said sometimes you can go into a room and then 6 months later it's on the radio.
Yeah.
What would you say is the song that sat the longest under like SMAC or publishing that you've worked at before you heard it?
Oh, man.
Because I think that's interesting too, how something can sit for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's songs that like they'll even get cut, and it'll take years for them to come to like fruition and to be an official single. I mean, we've had songs that have been like 6 or 7 years old become hits. I know there was Love Ain't, the Eli Young Band song, I feel like sat around forever, and every artist held it, and every artist said they were going to cut it, and then eventually like Big Machine was just like, Eli Young Band, you're going to cut this song, and it was a massive hit that I think all of the publishers and the writers on the song knew how big of a song it was. But that's one that comes to mind that kind of just, it felt like it sat forever. I don't know exactly how long, but it was probably 4 or 5 years.
Sometimes it just takes it's timing, a lot of it too. But speaking of another thing that I'm kind of just popped into my head is talking about holds. And I know a lot of people don't know what that means when someone holds a song. Can you explain a little bit what that is like, especially coming from a publisher's point of view, and what it means for like a bigger artist to hold onto a song from a songwriter versus a smaller, and kind of how that works?
I mean, the hold system's always had a lot of weird things to it, but essentially somebody hears a song and they'll ask you not to play it for anybody else before they have an opportunity for their artist to hear it, or the artist will say, give me an opportunity to cut it and not let anybody else hear it, kind of thing. Over the years, that has kind of changed a little bit in the sense that it's much harder to get outside songs cut. That, if Luke Combs says he's going to hold a song, like we're going to honor that pretty strongly. But if it's like a low-level A&R person, we're going to give them like a week or 2 to try to get an answer from somebody on the team, and then kind of move on.
Okay.
And from the beginning of my career, there's been situations where like 2 artists want to cut a song, and then you have to basically pick one. Because, if there's 3 publishers on a song, then communication can get messed up. And there's 3 writers. So this writer sent it, and this publisher sent it, and this, and then so multiple artists hear it, and they all want to hold it at the same time, and like, which one do you honor? So
do you ever honor multiple artists at once with that? Or is that
No, we try to be as honest as possible, and sometimes we get burnt for it. We've had conversations with managers and A&R people that haven't been very happy with our decisions sometimes, but in the end, we're just trying to make sure our writer has the best opportunity for their song to create income. And I think in the end, most of them understand it. I think it can be frustrating to go to your artist and be like, hey, you lost this song to this other artist, but I think you also have to understand,
Is it ever a rush to the recording studio? Like whoever has like a date on the books of say you had two really big artists that wanted the same song.
We'll do that, like who's cutting first. Who basically who cuts the song first gets the song, and that years ago that was much more prevalent.
Yeah.
And you know, there were artists even today that will be like, hey, if you give me the song, I'll book studio time, just to make sure that they get it. But Shane always tells a good story. Shane McAnally, who owns Smack Songs, about American Kids. Like Little Big Town cut that song, and Kenny Chesney heard it like months after Shane had sent it to him, and Little Big Town had cut it in between that. And Kenny's like, I want this to be my first single. Didn't know that Little Big Town had cut it, so he had to call Little Big Town and be like, hey, where are you at on this song? I know you already cut it. Kenny wants to make it his first single. And they're like, you know, like, we get it. Like, you should give it to Kenny because we don't know what our singles are yet.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's a very nice... Yeah. I feel like that's a nice way that was handled, because I can imagine, and I've heard stories that it didn't go.
They don't turn out that way, but it worked out for everybody because Little Big Town put out Girl Crush instead. So, you know, everybody won. Everybody won.
Well, because isn't there a similar story? Now, it could be a total rumor that I heard, but there's like a similar story to where Sam Hunt wanted to record his song that he wrote, Cop Car, and then Keith wanted it.
Yes.
And then he had made a call to him. Yeah.
Well, I think there was some publishers that kind of got involved in that too, and were like, hey, we're issuing the license whether Sam wants it or I think there was a lot of drama involved in
well, that's kind of what I heard, but then again, it's not from the horse's mouth themselves.
Yes.
So I'm like, but I had heard a few things about that.
I asked some of them as to what happened, but I think there was some drama that happened with that copyright.
So earlier on in Nashville, you started at something called the Tape Room at Seagale Music.
Yes.
What is the Tape Room? What was that?
I mean, the tape room copy guy is what they called it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so years ago, they used to make the tapes for the pluggers to go pitch the songs. And
we're aging it. That's an aging.
My job was to make the CDs, and I was also like front desk, answered phones, kind of secretary kind of job. But I made the CDs for the pluggers and tracked their pitches.
Okay. So. And what would you say is the biggest thing you took away or learned from being around writers and things of that caliber?
I mean, the creative environment that they set at Seagale was the thing I took the most from it, especially at the time. Liz O'Sullivan and Mike Owens were the pluggers at the time, and they were just so good at creating an environment for their writers to come in and hang out and create, and you know, they were just wildly successful when I was there. I mean, they were ASCAP Publisher of the Year 2 years in a row, I think, when I was at Seagale, and they just created a great environment. That's what I took, and that's what I still try to do this day, is create an environment for our writers that way.
Has there been a moment, especially in the earlier years, obviously you have been promoted multiple times and you are now like probably one of the highest positions you can hold at a publishing company, but a moment where you realized this is how a hit song happens?
I don't think there's a formula. You know, there are ways you can say, like, you know, if you write a tempo, you're more likely to get a single.
Sure,
if you write with an artist, you're more likely to get a cut. But at the same time, like, some of our biggest songs have been ballads. Some of our biggest songs have been outside songs. So there is no like real formula. You can maybe the odds can be better in your favor if you do things a specific way, or write to this melody, or write to this tempo, or whatever. And I know there are writers that try to focus on that. Like we have to keep it above this many beats per minute because we're more likely to get a single, more likely to get a cut. But there's no like rhyme or reason anymore.
Well, I always get a little frustrated with the whole the up tempo thing, just because I kind of feel like most artists, with their breakout song I find a lot of the time is a ballad.
Yeah, and that's a real thing, especially like female artists. If you go back over the years, like from Lainey Wilson, Megan Moroney, Maddie and Tay, like a lot of their big breakout songs were ballads. So.
Now, coming from, since you work with writers and you're signing writers all the time, how would you say writers stay ahead of the curve and ahead of the time, specifically since sometimes songs aren't picked up for years, and yes, production is a huge part of that can keep things to date, but at the same time, how would you say writers, especially maybe at Smack, that stay like ahead of the time to make sure that...
I think you kind of have to keep blinders on of what is happening. I think you need to pay attention to like who people are and what the kind of songs they want, and especially if you're just a pure lunch pail songwriter trying to get cuts, you have to have somewhat of an idea of what's going on in town. But for the most part, I think you just need to write your song, because I don't think anybody is going to pay you to write somebody else's song. And you know, most of the people that have success find their crew and find their people, and they create a new sound or a more progressive sound over the years. Like you've seen that with Ashley Gorley has a sound, Shane has a sound, Hardy has a sound now. Like you can hear their songs, and people want to cut their songs because they sound like Shane songs or Ashley songs or Hardy songs. Like that's what's happening.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
I agree with that. What was the first song that you were a part of that you helped facilitate that cut?
Oh man, the first one.
Maybe something memorable.
Memorable even. Actually, Little Big Town, who I mentioned earlier, when I started at Seagale, Kimberly was getting her hair done next door, and she had texted me to like, hey, make a CD next time I come get my hair done, and like I'll listen to some songs. So I was able to put together a CD for them of some of my ideas, some of the pluggers' ideas, and they ended up cutting a couple of them.
That's cool.
So Little Big Town, who I interned for, ended up being my first cut.
Do you remember any specific songs?
Rain on a Tin Roof came from that they cut, which I know has been cut by Trent Willman. I think cut it as well. He was one of the writers on it, but yeah. And then one was one that didn't make the record that Chris Stapleton wrote.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Chris Stapleton's catalog, that's got to be huge. So
yeah,
I mean,
just a little bit.
just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
What do you look for when signing a songwriter or an artist songwriter?
My number one thing is work ethic. I've signed a lot of writers that I don't think were necessarily ready for a publishing deal because I knew they were going to work hard to achieve greatness. And that's still like hard work beats talent every time. Because if you're,
I agree with that. Big time.
I'm the biggest believer in that. I will sign a hard worker over the best singer in the world every day. So it's the work ethic part of it for me. So.
Well, yeah, I forgot what I asked a guest prior, but I said like, what are the if we had to list them in order of what the most important things are to make an artist or to make somebody, and I had said talent, work ethic. Oh gosh, I forgot the other things, but I put talent as last.
Yeah.
And team.
Yeah.
I think, and timing.
Yeah.
And when I listed it, and it was funny, I went back and forth with the guest, and we disagree a little bit, but I thought arguably like talent came last. And I know that sounds kind of awful because you would hope that someone could have a little bit of that in general, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, the biggest artists in the world, I think, have, the balance of talent and hard work. But there's a lot of massive artists that aren't the best singers in the world, right? Mm-hmm. But they worked harder than you. Mm-hmm. Like that's what I tell people all the time. Like if they're going to work harder than you, like you got to work just as hard.
Okay, so you have a writer or a singer-songwriter and they work really hard and they're talented. What do you do for them that helps take them to that next level as a publisher?
Yeah, I think it's Matt creating the environment for them to create and feel like they don't have to worry about anything other than creating that day. But it's putting them in rooms to where they're going to succeed is a big part for me, and especially developing writers. I'm going to try to put them in rooms that are going to push them. I'm going to try to put them in rooms where they're going to have to be the driver of the song, or they're going to get run over by a veteran writer, just to kind of learn the craft of songwriting, and then eventually like settle in on a group of people that are going to be your crew of people that you rise with in this town, and help find that, and which will end up help finding your sound as well.
And I'm always curious about this because I know it happens, but you also notice, like when you look on the credits of an album or something, you notice that usually a lot of the songwriters that write together all belong to the same publishing company. Like how often do you set up your writers with writers that are at other publishing companies?
Every day. I mean,
okay. Do you prefer not to?
No, I mean that's my job is to work with other publishers every single day. I think there's a lot of the in-house writing thing happens naturally just because, say, like Lee Miller and Clara Parker writing that day, and Johnny Clausen's Right fell apart, so Johnny can just hop on with them. So then we have 3 Smack writers on there. And so that's why you see a lot of those things happen, just because it's super easy in-house to just be like, oh, we can just move these writers on here because they got canceled on. But all of our writers are writing outside of Smack every day. Maybe they're with one Smack writer and one non-Smack writer or whatever, but it's a very collaborative town.
That it is. And so, but when it comes down to it, and what I am curious about, because I guess I've never really known this for a fact, but say a much bigger writer at a bigger, publishing, like Warner or something, is working with someone who's much smaller, maybe somewhere at Seagale or something, even though Seagale is big as well. When it works with payment and paying, does someone at a bigger publishing, does they get paid more for a song than someone at a smaller? No,
it'll all be equal. I think it'll be based on your deal with your publishing company. It's not like if you have co-pub or full pub or whatever, but and then the draws can be different as well. Like somebody's draw can be higher than the other person, but in general, like the song makes what the song makes. And the splits are decided on as to what each writer signed with their publishing company.
Oh, okay. That's already
Like
kind
if the song makes $1 million, each shares $333,000. And then if you have a 50-50 deal or a 75-25 deal or whatever, that's just how it's going to get split.
Well, what's nice is that takes out I hate to say it, like the drama of it all, of what people are going to make before ever entering in somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if you already know what you're going to end up making, or the splits are already decided because of contracts you've already done, there's no like fighting over who makes.
No. And Nashville's very good about whoever's in the room, it's split equally most of the time. In Los Angeles, it's not like that.
No.
Los Angeles, you have to really negotiate your splits. And we've had to do that, like get on the phone and like argue splits. And then the song by the end of it has like 10 different writers on it, and you're trying to fight for 0.5% for your writer. Like that's a very LA way of doing business. Nashville's very, they believe like even if you weren't on that day, you still get a third of it because it's all going to even out in the end.
Well, and I've noticed that.
Because there's going to be a day you don't.
True.
You don't do most of it, and then the next day you do. So
I've noticed like, okay, so I like at the Grammys or at award show, and you see like the song of the year, what wins, and if it's like when it's like pop, I usually will see like 10, sometimes like 12, 13 writers, and with country, it's very refreshing because I usually never see more than 4.
Yeah.
Typically.
I mean, there's 5, 6 ways, and especially like. Some of the Post Malone things would end up having 5, 6 writers. There's some Morgan songs that do.
Yeah.
Because they'll be in camps and then they take it to a producer, and like this stuff can get split that way.
Yeah.
But it's still very rooted in the Nashville system. Mm-hmm. So.
Is there a specific artist that maybe you believed in before anyone else had that has now would be known?
Oh, wow. That now would be known. I mean, I was close friends with the Florida Georgia Line guys. I went to college with them, and was kind of there for their early successes. Going on the road with them, seeing them like their first shows, playing cruise and things like that. So I don't know if I would say that I knew they were going to be gigantic superstars that sold out stadiums, but I was there kind of in the beginning, got to see that rise, which was pretty fun.
Is there any that you have helped facilitate in their career in the beginning stages?
I mean, Florida Georgia Line was one
of them. Okay.
My roommate was Seth England of Big Loud Shirt, and Big Loud, and I introduced Florida Georgia Line to Seth, which ended up creating that relationship. So I think that was and I had nothing to do with Florida Georgia Line or Brian and Tyler or anything, but that was kind of one of the first things I facilitated.
Okay, who's one that you've actually been directly involved in?
In? I mean, I've worked with Walker Hayes for a long time.
He's great.
And since I'm almost 10 years now at SMAC. So,
okay.
And I've gotten to be a part of some of that. So getting to see from You Broke Up With Me to Fancy Like to AA and all that and all the different iterations. So
is there someone you're super excited? I know that you can't really fully kind of name call out people, but is there someone that you're excited about right now that you'd be willing to say?
Yeah, I mean we have 2 young artists that I work with at SMAC. McCoy Moore, who's signed to Sony and who's on tour with Hardy right now. And we also have a duo, Tiger Lily Gold.
Oh yeah.
That is fantastic and getting ready to finish up their record that's going to come out this year. So I think both, and in terms of the young artists, those are 2 that I'm pretty excited about the music they got coming out. So
what would you say, because your job is obviously to find writers and to sign them, what would you say separates a great writer from someone who's going to have a legendary career?
Oh, wow. I mean, there's so many things that luck is involved in some of it, obviously.
Of course.
And then, if you show up, I think you're going to have success in some way, shape, or form. Continuing to grow as a songwriter or an artist is really, really important, not to get stuck. You see a lot of people, once they start having success, try to kind of slow down a little bit. Mm-hmm. And then you see other artists that continue to try to push themselves. I think one of the big reasons why Tim McGraw and Blake Shelton and artists like that have had long careers is because they're always willing to take chances on younger writers in the next generation. That's a big reason why SMAC exists, is because Blake Shelton and Kenny Chesney and Tim McGraw have taken chances on not only Shane from the very beginning, but now our young writers and Johnny Clausen and Lalo Guzman and Josh Dorr. So I think it's being able to adapt to the town and is a big thing too. So
I would agree with that, because I've heard of plenty of times where people aren't willing to adapt, and that can be really detrimental. And if you don't keep up, move forward with things as things progress, you kind of get left behind a little bit.
Yeah.
But you were speaking of artists like Blake Shelton, Kenny Chesney, and when you secure a cut with artists like that, what does that process actually really look like? Because I think that a lot of listeners and people don't know. So say they didn't write, they're not a writer on it. What does it really look like from start to finish, getting a song that say it's Smack by your writers and securing that with an artist like a Blake Shelton, Kenny Chesney, Morgan Wallen, that idea?
I mean, on a weekly basis, we're sending songs to their representatives, their A&R people or the producers or whatnot, and then they hear the song and then they book studio time, they cut it, and then you kind of get the information. I think a specific situation that happened recently, we had Blake Shelton #1 song Texas last year, and 3 of the 4 writers are Smack writers, and they all 4 got canceled on that day, and Kyle Sturrock's the one that writes for Universal, but they all got canceled on that day and decided to still write. They showed up that day. Johnny came in with some idea about his ex-girlfriend at the time, and she's probably in Texas. And so they wrote that song, and they seemed pretty excited about it. They texted it to us, and then Jeremy had a random coffee meeting set up already with Scott Hendricks, and Scott Hendricks said, play me one song, not for Blake. Just what's your favorite song in the catalog right now? We're like, well, we just got this in, and I can't stop listening to it. And then Scott sent it to Blake, and Blake at the time didn't even have a record deal, and he was meeting with people with the idea of like, this is my first single, and
that sure worked out.
And then BMG signed him, and that was the first single, and the rest is history.
How often would you say something like that would happen versus you guys already have in mind songs are going to be pitched to certain artists?
Yeah.
Because we all know that people go into rooms with the idea of like, I want to have the idea of writing for so-and-so today. Yeah. Obviously, I think that those targeted rights, not sure if they work more than the alternative. Would you say a targeted right for a specific artist when someone has someone in mind works more often than just going into the room, writing a great song, and then finding that home for it later?
I think it's if you're doing a camp or something, then you're going to like a targeted right for a specific camp.
Yes.
Those get cut pretty easily. Not easily, but I would say you get a better shot. The odds are better if you're doing something like that. But I would say if you're just going in on a Wednesday to write the normal write, and you're going to target something, chances are it's probably not going to hit the mark. So we always try to tell people just to write a great song, and then you can kind of see where it lands. Because I can promise you, like, I don't think anybody had Blake Shelton in mind when they wrote Texas. I think it was a pretty, like, the demo was pretty progressive. But Blake, again, to his credit, he continues to grow with the town. Just like I doubt when Hardy wrote God's Country, he was thinking this would be a great Blake Shelton song, because it didn't sound like what he had done. Yeah. But now, like, you hear it and it all makes sense. So, but no, I think you just kind of got to write the best song in the room and not target too much unless it's a specific situation.
Well, I agree with that because, I was going to ask if you think that sometimes going in and trying to target something will stop someone from writing a great song.
Yeah, I would guess that would be the case. But because, again, like, you don't ever want to prevent the person that's going to bring in the idea. Because if those boys would have been writing for a Gabby Barrett project or something, they probably would not have written Texas.
Yeah.
So if it would have been, that doesn't mean that they wouldn't have written something great for Gabby that day.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, of course.
But Texas probably wouldn't have happened. So,
has there been a time where you've known immediately when someone's played you a song like that's a hit?
Texas is the last one. Yeah.
Okay, that was the last.
I'll mention it again, but that's
sure.
that was one. I remember when Shane played us "Marry Me," the Thomas Rhett song. That's a core memory for me because I was like, this is one of the best songs I've ever heard. Like the twist at the end and all that stuff. There's a lot of those moments where you hear and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of like just great moments, other than since you've been here, no matter what position you've held or what company you've been at, what would you say is probably one of your most memorable moments, other than that you look back on and you're like, that was cool. Like I can't believe I'm doing this.
Yeah, I think I worked with Ryan Beaver for a long time. He was the first writer I signed when I worked at Hori Pro Entertainment, and I signed him again at Smack. And his first #1, Pretty Little Poison with Warren Ziders, that #1 party is probably my top moment, just because he was the first writer I signed. He's one of my best friends. And getting to be there for his first #1 was really special. And for a song that big, too, was pretty incredible. So.
Okay. Who would you say right now is the toughest artist to get a cut with?
The toughest artist to get a cut with? Probably Zach Top.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, Zach Top's got a pretty close circle. He's only writing with
I guess
5,
I really
6
wouldn't
people.
have thought that, but okay.
Yeah, and he hasn't really cut anything outside yet. Hopefully that the circle will open and he'll start cutting some more outside stuff. I know they listen, like his label's out there actively listening for some stuff. And
okay, what about female artists?
Female artists, I mean, almost all of them. There's not a lot of female artists that cut outside songs right now. I know Lauren Elena, Mackenzie Porter, there are some that, have in the past. But, like Lainey Wilson has a pretty tight crew. Megan Maroney has a pretty tight crew. Mm-hmm. And Smack's had cuts on both of those artists here and there. But, most female artists are tough to get in with because they're pretty dedicated to their people. So, which
I guess is good in a sense. But so I've talked about this before on past shows and even solo episodes, but I kind of want to get your opinion on it because there's the whole ever-ending issue with how women aren't as played or all of those things. And I am on the other side of things where I probably am the unpopular opinion where I don't think it's a girl versus guy issue.
Yeah.
I think it's a song choice issue.
Yeah.
And where you're alienating 50% of a population sometimes just by a topic of a song. And what would you say is a good suggestion or a good, I don't want to say suggestion, but advice to female artists, songwriters, when they're writing to maybe be a little bit more neutral in the idea of can be listened by more than just girls?
Yeah. And I say this to the our female writers and artists and everything, is you have to write about what people actually go through. And I think for a long time, a lot of female artists really didn't write what they actually were going through. And I've had this conversation with our girls, Tiger Lily, but I'm like, hey, like people do drugs, people have sex, like people have there's lives that people have.
Yeah.
And if you're not singing about it, if you're just singing about his cookie cutter life, you're probably not going to connect to a lot of people, which is, I think, a credit to why Casey Musgraves or Maren Morris or Megan Maroney or Lainey Wilson, the Ella Langley, these females that work, they're not afraid to sing and talk about things. And I think that's a lesson for female artists, is to kind of look at the ones that are working and doing it well and selling tickets and kind of emulate the way that they talk about or they write about their lives.
That was actually probably some of the best advice that I've heard from somebody, I guess, just blatantly saying it about songs so far, because I think there's a lot of guessing and just assuming, and that's a really good way to put it, because I've always said at the top of the list was Casey Musgraves and Maren Morris that did a really good job. It's kind
They're
of
authentically them.
Well, and they walked, I don't want to say they played it safe, because they absolutely didn't, but walked it down the middle of, and I say Lainey Wilson's really good at this too, walking it down the middle of song choice or even writing. When you turn on the radio or you're streaming a song and it doesn't feel like it's just a girl song or just a guy song, like anybody can song. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm glad that you gave a really good answer to that, because I think a lot of people wonder, what's the issue with that? And I think that it's absolutely...
There's a lot. I mean, there is a real sexism part of it, too. I mean, we worked with Kylie Morgan for a long time, and she had a gold single that was top 40 that her label ended up pulling. And we still don't really have an explanation as to why they pulled the song, even though it was out streaming and consuming a lot of songs ahead of it.
So if he wanted to, he would.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to me, it was a great song. And I still don't really understand why that song wasn't a hit. But you could say any of these male artist songs that streamed 10% of that song were hits. So there's a lot of stuff that needs explanation.
Sure. Yeah.
Why did the label? Why did radio not want it? There is some things, and really the only thing you can come up with is it tested well, it consumed well, and it was the problem just that she was a female.
Oh, and I can understand, especially if it tested well and it was being received well.
So
then
there's just no reason.
That part doesn't make sense.
So there's no reason.
For sure.
Yeah. So I mean, that does exist, but I am of the belief of, I think some female artists do struggle with being authentically themselves because they're afraid to say things publicly. So.
Well, now that you just brought up one that you're kind of baffles you, is there another song where you feel that strongly about as well, or where you're where people would probably know the song, but it just didn't make it to where you were it should have made it a little bit further than that?
I mean, not off the top of my female wise.
No, anybody.
Female single. Oh.
No, anybody.
I mean, one of my I think Rainy Montana as an artist was one of my favorite artists.
Okay.
And 1,000 Faces, that song I thought was going to be the biggest song ever. And I think it was a little ahead of its time. And that obviously did not work. Now he's a big songwriter in town, though. But that was one that I was pretty positive was going to hit. Cameron Marlowe's one that I keep getting confused by, because I feel like he makes some of the best music.
For sure.
And his songs stream really well and have gone platinum and stuff like that, and radio hasn't quite caught on to that yet. But, those are just a couple of examples. But.
What's a day in the life of Senior Vice President at SMAC?
A day in the life?
Yeah, what's a day in the life look like?
Oh, wow.
Typically, hopefully, maybe a little bit more of an exciting day than.
It's a lot of writer one-on-ones, like whether it's breakfasts or seeing them before they go into their writes. And then we have pitch meetings on a pretty regular basis at most of the record labels. And we have regulars with every record label, essentially, and we go try to pitch them songs. And then a lot of it's calendar work, trying to make sure our writers are set up in the best situation they can possibly be in. We book a lot of our writers, 1, 2, 3 months out. And
oh, wow.
It's all on emails, essentially. So we're doing it over email, trying to get them in the rooms. But
how many cancellations do you have? Do you have a lot of that?
Yeah.
Artistic people are really wishy-washy, so.
Yeah, and there's, life happens.
Yeah.
And there's situations where, somebody has a scheduled write, but then, Luke Bryan wants to write with them that day, and you're like, hey, sorry, like, I can't make this, I got to go write with Luke Bryan, which we all understand. And then, kids get sick, people get sick, cancellations happen. But I'm pretty touchy on the cancellation thing. Like, if you're not giving me a good reason, I may not rebook for a while. So
I agree with that.
Don't waste my writer's time.
Absolutely. So. Okay, so you talk about pitch meetings. How many people are typically in the room at a time when you're pitching with labels?
I mean, if it's like my regular meetings with, for example, like Stephanie Wright at MCA, there's going to be 2 or 3. If it's going to be me and Stephanie, maybe another plugger at SMAC will go with me. But then we also do something called a cattle call, where we'll meet with artists. And like we met with Lady A couple weeks ago, and they had their A&R person, their manager. They had like a social media team person in there taking pictures. So you could end up 8, 9 people in a room sometimes. So
wow, it's a lot of like chefs in the kitchen a little bit.
Yeah, but I mean,
do you like that?
It matters situation. I think specifically with them, it's fine because they really like listening to music and they make it really fun. And there's other artists that may not be quite as fun in the situation, or managers that may not make the environment quite as fun, but it's just part of it.
Obviously, without you naming any names, have you had to deal with where there are too many opinions in the room and it's not giving the artist that feeling of being able to just connect with music?
Yes.
That's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, or they're like managers or people insert themselves before the artist has an opportunity to talk, or... and there's been pitch meetings where I've kind of just played a couple songs and just got up and left because I just didn't think anything was connecting, or they were being somewhat disrespectful. So.
Oh. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. How much of your job would you say is creative versus management?
Management? Oh, creative versus management. Oh, wow. We're probably 75% management, 25% creative. I would say at this point. I think 10 years ago you may have flipped that.
Okay.
But now we're much more in the calendar management system, and there's a creative aspect of putting your writers in the right situation, obviously on a day-to-day basis. But like listening to songs and pitching songs is definitely decreased over the years.
Have you the reason why? Is that why you got? Because you said you like music. I mean, you wanted to listen to music, so that would be. I would want to get into it just so I could listen to as much music as possible.
Yeah, pitching songs is my absolute favorite thing to do. So, and when labels call and say Lady A is going to be here. Do you want to pitch some songs? That's what fires me up. I love that stuff. I also like setting up writes and listening to my friends' new writers that they signed and seeing those relationships grow over time. But yeah, I'm a big fan of pitching songs.
How often are you signing a new writer? Because I know you guys keep your team relatively not. Yeah. I mean, the roster isn't massive, right? Yeah. Like other places.
I think we have 25 writers right now.
Okay.
So.
And is there a number that you guys wouldn't go above, or?
There are no rules.
Okay.
I think when I started, we had 9. We were a much smaller company. Now we have 25.
Mm-hmm. That's
our teams had to grow as we grow, but I don't see us getting much bigger than that, obviously. But again, everything that we sign comes pretty natural. We don't really sign things that are good for business because those things tend to be not good for business. We tend to sign things that we like or people in the building like, and just let it grow naturally. So, if we end up at 30, we do. But if we end up back at 20, I'm good with any of that. So.
Okay. And say there's a green artist, pretty new. What would you say their biggest misconception is of a publisher?
Their biggest misconception of a publisher.
Or what they thought they were going to receive from a publisher from a job that maybe they thought that was their job and it's not, or...
Yeah, I think some probably view it as a check.
Okay.
And somebody that's going to all right, I'm going to get a publishing deal and then I'm going to get in the room with Shane or Ashley or Hardy or whatever it is immediately. And that's not what we do. But anytime we sign somebody, I'm pretty upfront about what's going to happen and like what my expectations are of them, and this is what you can expect from me. And if it doesn't work, we don't have to do the deal. And just the way that we develop writers is I'm like, hey, we're going to do it from the bottom up, and you may get an opportunity to write with an A-list writer here and there, but that's not going to be the goal. Your goal is to get better, and then eventually you can get into those rooms. But
I think honesty, probably. You're right, because I can imagine if someone got signed to like a big pub deal, I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to get in the rooms with all these massive people. And so that's good that the honesty would be there.
I mean, it'll happen. Like, you'll get opportunities, obviously, but I make sure that they rise with their own people. So,
have you ever passed on a song where you just kick yourself now for?
Oh, no, I mean, there's been artists and songwriters that we've met with over the years that, like, in different situations, I wish we could have signed them, but I honestly knew that, like, when I was at Seagull and like, I think it was realistic that FGL would sign there, but like, probably should have, like, looking back, but at the same time, like, would they have been FGL without Big Loud? So, like, people end up where they're supposed to end up, I feel like, and we can't sign to every writer and every artist. So yeah, over the years, there's some that you wish you could have signed or worked with at different times, but.
Okay, so on an interview that I watched you have, you guys did lightly touch on this topic, and I wanted to touch on it, and it's AI.
Yeah.
I think it's like the elephant in the room with a lot of things that are going on right now, and I think it's progressively gotten more out of hand a little bit, but I know I've heard you say some not so, like, some actual positive things about it too on the last interview that I saw you talk about it.
Yeah.
Are you seeing AI in a lot more songwriting or demo production right now?
Demo production.
Okay.
Definitely. And honestly, like, I feel like over the last couple of months, the novelty's wearing off a little bit of the AI demo. It's not to say that they, this time last year versus this time that we're getting more AI demos or AI assisted demos, I should say. But I think the town is somewhat realizing they're not quite as competitive as the professional producer. Like, our writer Lalo Guzman makes better tracks than Sonos does. So, maybe the novelty's wearing off a little bit in terms of the demo production side of things.
I guess my fear is, and I don't know if it would be yours, is that I believe AI is only going to get better, right? It's not going to get worse.
Yeah.
It's going to get better. So, and then at some point, because, I mean, I have a friend, she's a songwriter in town, but she doesn't, like, exceptionally love her voice. And I think sometimes the vocal can sell a demo.
It can.
And sometimes you can hear, so she was like, I always thought I wasn't that great of a songwriter. And then I put my songs into this, what was it, Sonos, or which one is it? Suno?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And she's like, and then all of a sudden I was like, I am actually a pretty dang good songwriter.
Yeah.
Because sometimes needing to hear it, like it being performed better, can actually sell the song more. So now it sounds like a hit.
Yeah. I mean, we've got AI demos cut too. So, and it is definitely a tool that is a very valuable tool. I don't know how dominant it's going to be in the creative space. I think art is still predominantly, people want human-made art.
Oh, absolutely. Trust me, I'm on that side.
So I again, like, I don't know how dominant it's going to be in the art space. I think other industries need to worry about it more than the music industry at this point. But
okay, so you don't seem that worried about it.
I mean, I'm still trying to get a Jordan Davis cut today, and I don't think AI is affecting that. So, that's my job. But no, there is definitely going to be some things that change in every single industry because of AI, whether you're a data analyst or a lawyer or whatever, like, things will change. And even on the production side of things, and the way that the track guy or the producer, the in-home producer, changed the way studios operate, and a lot of studios went out of business. Like, that's a real thing that like studio guys could possibly get damaged by this. But I also think that there's benefits in if you can figure out ways to regulate it and to make sure that, like, AI is using what already exists, right? So if they're using a Derek Wells guitar part on a demo that they made, Derek Wells should be compensated for that.
Absolutely.
Or if they're using a line that Hardy wrote in an AI song, Hardy should be compensated for that. So there are ways that I think eventually we're going to get to the point where it gets regulated to where creators and musicians and things like that can be compensated for what they've created.
Yeah, because I know there's a bunch of lawsuit. There's a major lawsuit going on right now with music publishers and an AI company, and I think it's like a $3 billion lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think about it as, is there a tool, and I don't know if there is one, so I'm asking you if you know of one. So say your writers decide they AI'd a song and it's really good. Would SMAC accept that? Is there a tool to use for you to figure out if it was like plagiarized through AI or they wrote it themselves?
I mean, I don't think there's a way for, I mean, there's systems that people use for plagiarism to see if a song is on top of another song. Like a lot of major companies see that, especially if, like if you inadvertently take something from a song, you can put it in like a system, and then they can be like, hey, this matches these notes or whatever.
But
like,
there's no tool to tell if something, you pop something in and it says, this is AI generated.
Is this necessarily copyright infringement? No, but I don't know if my writers are using AI to write lyrics, it'd probably stand out because it sucks. But that's the only way I would know.
But I guess that's my concern, is that it could get, I genuinely do believe AI is going to get better.
Yeah.
So then you're going to have a lot of people who come to town who, quite frankly, just want to be a famous songwriter, right?
Yeah.
And say AI got so good that it can fool people, I don't want to say you, but can fool people in your position. And you sign people like this, and then they're just kind of plugging stuff in.
Well, I would make sure my other writers wrote with them before to make sure that they're actually decent songwriters. So I think it would be hard for somebody just coming to town AIing everything and getting a deal and having success, kind of at this moment at least. But maybe that changes.
At the end of the day, so the last question I'll have on this is, what do you think it poses, AI poses for real songwriters, a real songwriter's future?
I think to view it as a tool. I don't view it as an enemy at the moment. I don't think it's going to take anybody's job at the moment, you know. But I
love hearing that.
That's today, right?
Yeah.
And there are AI artists out there that are having success, but we still don't know how valid some of it is. You know, if you look at some of their number one consumption cities will be like somewhere in Montana, which is a little bit fishy. So could be some farming going on with some of these Spotify artists or iTunes artists. So yeah, like, you know, Kane Walker or Breaking Rust or some of these AI artists. We don't really know how valid that consumption is quite yet on some of them, or how popular it is. Because even like when I go home back to Central Illinois and people talk about country music, nobody has ever brought up an AI artist to me.
That's true.
You know, they'll talk about Zach Bryan or Morgan Wallen or Megan Maroney or whatever, but nobody has ever brought that up. So, again, maybe somebody's out there saying they love AI artists, but I don't.
Well, I say in the artist world, yes, I would be far less to believe that anybody, really in the long scheme of things, would sign on to this.
Yeah.
But in the songwriter realm, I think could be just a hint more concerning, unless a lot of these lawsuits really do play out favorably for music publishers, where you really can't be stealing. Because at the end of the day, like you said, AI is just a bunch of already original things that are put into one thing.
And we already have copyright law.
Okay.
So like eventually like the regulation will have to come from our government. And state governments have tried to do some of these things. But the federal government is eventually going to have to figure out AI and its regulation. And I know that there's a lot of people working on that in D.C. right now on both sides of the aisle, and some incredible people lobbying on behalf of songwriters like NSAI and things like that, NMPA. And there's a lot of work being done. I think right now, the current administration is very like, let's just see where AI goes, and kind of figure it out later, because they don't want to really regulate it.
Yeah.
And one of their big things is they don't want to fall behind China, which I think is somewhat of a valid, like, in terms of AI's growth, they don't want to fall behind any of our adversaries. But I do think in the coming years we are going to have a serious AI regulation, and especially in regards to art and copyright infringement, name, image, and likeness. Like, can you use Mr. Rogers' face in a AI video to sell your product? Like, you probably shouldn't be able to do that. Like, there's a lot of things they're going to have to figure out. And I know a lot of the companies are already being sued by these companies based on copyright infringement or a trademark infringement and things like that. So maybe it'll settle itself without the government, but more than likely, like, we're going to have.
Well, and I had posed the question a while back about, because obviously somebody has to type in a prompt.
Yeah.
Sometimes as explicit as someone who sounds a little bit like Chris Stapleton and a little bit like this and a little bit like that. So arguably at that point, shouldn't they be getting paid for that versus like the breaking? Well,
they should be able to license their voice. And have a say as to whether or not, and there are some artists that are allowing that to happen already, that are doing deals with some AI companies to use their voice.
I didn't know the artists were doing that.
Yeah. So there are, and like labels are doing deals with AI companies. Disney did a deal to use some of their characters in AI in various ways. So yeah, I mean, there's companies trying to figure out a way forward to use it as a tool. But we'll see. We'll see where it ends.
Okay. And moving on to, I think, something that's really heartwarming that I saw and that you created, which is a songwriter series with the USO.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that is?
Yes. So I think it was like 2017 or 2018. I started helping a lady at the USO in Fort Campbell do some like benefit shows for the USO. And in the midst of that, she had some generals coming and some higher ranking people coming to some sort of a convention at Barbara Mandrell's house, the Fontanelle. And she asked if I could set up a writer's round because none of them had really seen a writer's round. And these were all like higher level people in the Pentagon. And like the head of the USO and bigger people were there. And it was Lynn Hutton, Tammy Kidd, Brandon Anderson, and Eric Dillon played a show for me out there.
Those are like my favorite people.
And they crushed it. And the USO people were like, what if we were able to take this to different places? And since then we've had like 60-ish writers play about 30-ish events. And we've flown out to aircraft carriers. We've been to Greenland, been to multiple posts all over the country and doing these shows. And I have a group of publishers that help me set up some of these things and some writers that have done it a bunch of times. And they're getting ready to go out next month to Norfolk and do one. My friend Matt Turner is helping me set that up. And they're going to play 2 aircraft carriers.
Oh. So
one's going out and one's coming in from deployment. And they're going to bounce from both the aircraft carriers to entertain the sailors. So
I mean, I know that's like I think it's a really huge moment for like artists or songwriters to do something like that. I performed at a Medal of Honor ceremony.
Yeah.
And that was like still probably one of the most memorable things I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is one of the most memorable moments you've been able to experience since you've put this together?
We got to, I went with Lee Miller, Emily Landis, and Graylin James, and I got to go with them and fly out to the USS George Washington aircraft carrier, and we got to fly out in the middle of the ocean and land on it, and you get tail hooked and everything, and stay the night on an aircraft carrier.
Wow.
And they got to play a show for the sailors on the aircraft carrier, and, we got to spend 36 hours on an aircraft carrier. It was coming back into port in Virginia, and that was I'll never forget that. We got to stand on the deck and watch the planes get launched. Like we're in between planes launching off the deck of the ship, and just great experiences like that are pretty cool.
Coming from your background, what has this have meant to you?
It means a lot to see other people get to experience the crazy stuff. Because I was in the Army and I got to be in helicopters and planes and stuff to an extent. I didn't get to experience all these Navy things, which is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because I never really I realized I'm not a ship person. I'm more of a tent person. And I've told some of the captains and stuff that I'm like, I think I've learned I'd rather be in a tent than in a metal room. So, and we get to stay in like a VIP situation, and I can't imagine living in the like 3-story bunks in the ship
For
and
sure.
stuff. But it's pretty cool to see other people get to experience the military and what they all go through and realize that they have to live on this ship for months, if not a year at a time, and not see their families, and the internet sometimes works and doesn't work, and get to just the sacrifices that they make on a regular basis is pretty incredible. And then really getting to see going in the radar room and seeing what they do, and there's like people there 24/7 tracking to see if any missiles are coming at their thing, and learning that an aircraft carrier can launch all those aircraft in like 30 minutes,
Wow.
a full-scale invasion of an entire country. In 30 minutes, like just how powerful the U.S. military is. Like aircraft carriers are nuclear powered; they don't stop for gas.
Wow.
Like there's stuff that you get to learn that's pretty incredible. So
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so I only have a few more things for you, and we're wrapping up. I'm going to do kind of a little bit more of a rapid fire with you. So just quick things that are at the top. I know you already said you would like a cut with Jordan Davis, but what's another artist you'd love to get a cut with?
Dierks Bentley would be my number. Like to pitch a song. We've had Dierks Bentley cuts in the past, but I'd love to pitch one to Dierks because he's really the reason why I kind of wanted to do this. So Dierks would be the number one. Yeah.
One song that you wish you had published.
Wow. Things a Man Ought to Know.
Okay.
Lainey Wilson.
All right. The most underrated songwriter in Nashville right now.
Most underrated songwriter. I won't say a smack writer because I don't want to be too much of a homer, but I would say Colton Venner.
Okay. Songwriting trend that you were tired of hearing.
Thinking and drinking.
Okay. Okay. Songwriting trend you wish we heard more of.
That's a good one. More of. More patriotic songs.
Love that.
Yeah.
I know
Bring back Toby Keith.
Right. Jeffrey still does it. Still loves doing a bunch of that.
I still love, like, we had one on Cody Johnson, Made in the USA.
Yeah.
Freaking love that song. We need more of that.
You're right. We do need more patriotic songs. Okay. When it's all said and done, what do you want the writers you've worked with to say about you?
That I worked as hard as they did for their dream.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if someone is getting into publishing, what should they start doing tomorrow?
Meet as many people as you possibly can.
Specifically certain groups?
Yeah, I mean, if you show up to songwriter nights, show up to music industry events, show up to mixers. I got my first job because I randomly met somebody at Seagale at the stage one night. So, getting out there, be seen. When I was in my 20s, I had a rule, like, if I was home before 7, I wasn't doing my job right. So, go out and meet people.
Well, thank you, Lee. This has been a lot of fun, and it's been a pleasure to have you on What's Mine Is Yours.